Krishna devotees, please accept my humble obeisances of Shri Prabhupada. Welcome devotees to evening Bhagavad Gita Circle reading program. We will be continuing with chapter 7, verse 4. The chapter is entitled The Knowledge of the Absolute Truth. We're going to be seeing more devotees rolling in. So please do bear with us. Until then, we will start so that we don't run behind. So you can, and it'll be read and explained to us by Parikshit Prabhu from ISKCON, Harrisburg. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prashaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane. Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirveshesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshatani. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shiva Shadi Gaura Bhaktavinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare. Hare Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. Good afternoon, dear devotees. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So we continue with Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, Knowledge of the Absolute. Text 4. Bhumya ponalo vayu kammano buddhir evacha ahankara iti yame vina prakriti ashtadam. Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. All together, these 8 constitute my separated material energies. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The science of God analyzes the constitutional position of God and his diverse energies. Material nature is called Prakriti, or the energy of the Lord in his different Purusha incarnations or expansions, as described in the Narada Pancharatra, one of the Sattva Tantras. Vishnostu Trini Rupani Purusha Kyani Atho Vidu Ekam tu Mahata Shastri Devitiyam Vitiyam Twanda Samstitam Tritiyam Sarvabhutastam Tani Gyatva Vimuchete. For material creation, Lord Krishna's plenary expansion assumes 3 Vishnus. The first one, Mahavishnu, creates the total material energy, known as the Mahat Tattva. The second, Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, enters into all the universes to create diversities in each of them. The third, Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, is diffused as the all-pervading supersoul in all the universes and is known as Paramatma. He is present even within the atoms. Anyone who knows these 3 Vishnus can be liberated from material entanglement. This material world is a temporary manifestation of one of the energies of the Lord. All the activities of the material world are directed by these 3 Vishnu expansions of Lord Krishna. These Purushas are called incarnations. Generally, one who does not know the science of God, Krishna, assumes that this material world is for the enjoyment of the living entities, and that the living entities are the Purushas, the causes, controllers, and enjoyers of the material energy. According to Bhagavad Gita, this atheistic conclusion is false. In the verse under discussion, it is stated that Krishna is the original cause of the material manifestation. Srimad Bhagavatam also confirms this. The ingredients of the material manifestation are separated energies of the Lord. Even the Brahmajyoti, which is the ultimate goal of the impersonalists, is a spiritual energy manifested in the spiritual sky. There are no spiritual diversities in the Brahmajyoti as they are in the Vaikuntha Lokas. And the impersonalist accepts this Brahmajyoti as the ultimate eternal goal. The Paramatma manifestation is also a temporary, all-pervasive aspect of the Kshirodakshaya Vishnu. The Paramatma manifestation is not eternal in the spiritual world. Therefore, the factual absolute truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. He is the complete energetic person, and he possesses different separated and internal energies. In the material energy, the principal manifestations are 8, as above mentioned. Out of these, the first 5 manifestations, namely earth, water, fire, air, and sky, are called the 5 gigantic creations of the gross, or the gross creations, within which the 5 sense objects are included. They are the manifestations of physical sound, touch, form, taste, and smell. Material science comprises these 10 items and nothing more. But the other 3 items, namely mind, intelligence, and false ego, are neglected by the materialists. Philosophers who deal with mental activities are also not perfect in knowledge because they do not know the ultimate source, Krishna. The false ego, I am, and it is mine, which constitute the basic principle of material existence, includes 10 sense organs for material activities. Intelligence refers to the total material creation called the Mahatattva. Therefore, from the 8 separated energies of the Lord are manifested the 24 elements of the material world, which are the subject matter of Sankhya atheistic philosophy. They are originally offshoots from Krishna's energies and are separated from him, but atheistic Sankhya philosophers with a poor fund of knowledge do not know Krishna as the cause of all causes. The subject matter for discussion in the Sankhya philosophy is only the manifestation of the external energy of Krishna, as it is described in the Bhagavad Gita. Text 5. Apareyam itastvanyam prakritim vidhi me param jiva bhutam mahabaho yaedam dharyate jagat. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Besides these, O mighty armed Arjun, there is another superior energy of mind which comprises the living entities who are exploiting the resources of this material inferior nature. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Here, it is clearly mentioned that living entities belong to the superior nature or energy of the Supreme Lord. The inferior nature is matter manifested in different elements, namely earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and false ego. Both forms of material nature, namely gross, earth, etc., and subtle, mind, etc., are products of the inferior energy. The living entities who are exploiting these inferior energies for different purposes are the superior energy of the Supreme Lord. And it is due to this energy that the entire material world functions. The cosmic manifestation has no power to act unless it is moved by the superior energy, the living entity. Energies are always controlled by the energetic, and therefore the living entities are always controlled by the Lord. They have no independent existence. They are never equally powerful as unintelligent men think. The distinction between the living entities and the Lord is described in the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 87, Text 30, as follows. Aparimita druvastanu brito yadisavagatas tarhi nasasyat teti niyamo dhruva netarta ajani chayan mayam tad avimucha niyantri bhavat bhavet Sama anujanatam yan amatum mata dushtataya. O Supreme Eternal, if the embodied living entities were eternal and all-pervading like you, then they would not be under your control. But if the living entities are accepted as minute energies of your lordship, then they are at once subjects to your supreme control. Therefore, real liberation entails surrender by the living entities to your control, and that surrender will make them happy. In that constitutional position only can they be controllers. Therefore, men with limited knowledge who advocate the monistic theory that God and the living entities are equal in all respects are actually guided by a faulty and polluted opinion. The Supreme Lord, Krishna, is the only controller, and all living entities are controlled by him. These living entities are his superior energy because the quality of their existence is one and the same with the Supreme, but they are never equal to the Lord in quantity of power. While exploiting the gross and subtle inferior energy, matter, the superior energy, the living entity, forgets his real spiritual mind and intelligence. This forgetfulness is due to the influence of matter upon the living entity. But when the living entity becomes free from the influence of the illusory material energy, he attains the stage called mukti, or liberation. The false ego, under the influence of material illusion, thinks, I am matter and material acquisitions are mine. His actual position is realized when he is liberated from all material ideas, including the conception of his becoming one in all respects with God. Therefore, one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies of Krishna. And when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated. Text 6. Etadyonini bhutani savanityopa dharaya aham krishnasya jagata prabhava pralayastata. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. All created beings have their source in these two natures. Of all that is material and all that is spiritual in this world, know for certain that I am both the origin and the dissolution. Report by Srila Prabhupada. Everything that exists is a product of matter and spirit. Spirit is the basic field of creation, and matter is created by spirit. Spirit is not created at a certain stage of material development. Rather, this material world is manifested only on the basis of spiritual energy. This material body is developed because spirit is present within matter. A child grows gradually to boyhood and then to manhood because that superior energy, spirit soul, is present. Similarly, the entire cosmic manifestation of the gigantic universe is developed because of the presence of the supersoul, Vishnu. Therefore, spirit and matter, which combine to manifest this gigantic universal form, are originally two energies of the Lord, and consequently, the Lord is the original cause of everything. A fragmental part and parcel of the Lord, namely the living entity, may be the cause of a big skyscraper, a big factory, or even a big city, but he cannot be the cause of a big universe. The cause of a big universe is the big soul or the super soul, and Krishna, the Supreme, is the cause of both the big and small souls. Therefore, he is the original cause of all causes. This is confirmed in the Katha Upanishad 2.2.13, Nitya Nityanam Chaitana Chaitananam. Text 7. Mata parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mayi savam idam putam sutrimani gana iva. translation by Srila Prabhupada. O conqueror of worlds, there is no truth superior to me. Everything rests upon me as pearls are strung on a thread. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. There is a common controversy over whether the Supreme Absolute Truth is personal or impersonal. As far as Bhagavad Gita is concerned, the Absolute Truth is the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna. And this is confirmed in every step. In this verse in particular, it is stressed that the Absolute Truth is a person. That the personality of Godhead is the Absolute Truth, is the Supreme Absolute Truth, is also the affirmation of the Brahma Samhita, Ishvara Parama Krishna, Satchidananda Vigraha. That is, the Supreme Absolute Truth personality of Godhead is Lord Krishna, who is the primeval Lord, the reservoir of all pleasure, Govinda, and the eternal form of complete bliss and knowledge. These authorities leave no doubt that the Absolute Truth is the Supreme Person, the cause of all causes. The impersonalist, however, argues on the strength of the Vedic version given in the Svatar Upanishad 3.10, Tato yad uttarataram tad arupam anamayam yad ya itad vidur amritas te bhavanti adetare dukam eva piyanti. In the material world, Brahma, the primeval living entity within the universe, is understood to be the supreme amongst the demigods, human beings, and lower animals. But beyond Brahma, there is a transcendence, who has no material form and is free from all material contaminations. Anyone who can know him also becomes transcendental, but those who do not know him suffer the miseries of the material world. The impersonalist puts more stress on the word arupam, but this arupam is not impersonal. It indicates the transcendental form of eternity, bliss, and knowledge, as described in the Brahma Samhita quoted above. Other verses in the Svatar Upanishad 3 and text 8 to 9 substantiate this as follows. Vedaham etat purusham mahantam aditya varnam tamasa parastat tam eva viditvati mrityum iti nanya panta vidyate yanaya yasmat param na param asti kinchit yasman aniyo yogyayo sti kinchit riksha iva stabdo divi tishtati kas tenedam purnam purushena sarvam. I know that Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is transcendental to all material conceptions of darkness. Only he who knows him can transcend the bonds of birth and death. There is no way for liberation other than this knowledge of that Supreme Person. There is no truth superior to that Supreme Person because he is the supermost. He is smaller than the smallest, and he is greater than the greatest. He is situated as a silent tree, and he illumines the transcendental sky. And as the tree spreads its roots, he spreads its extensive energies. From these verses, one concludes that the Supreme Absolute Truth is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is all-pervading by his multi-energies, both material and spiritual. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you so much for reading this amazing, I think, 4 verses. Yeah, and to me, they were power-packed. It's like I have to go back and read one line and dissect it, and one line I dissect it, and one line. Amazing, verses. Very, very powerful. Would like to ask devotees, if you have any questions, any comments, any add-ons, reflections, please do jump right in. We have about 8-9 minutes to speak, so please definitely, ask your questions. And I do have a question, and I want to go back, like I said, to really digest all these verses. There was a verse that, a line that Srila Prabhupada was explaining that I thought if you could shed some light, I'm trying to find, yeah, I think it's Krishna, Chaitanya. I'm trying to find out where that was. I mean, every paragraph in these 4 verses is so powerful that I feel like it went over my head. But at the same time, I really want to go back and really digest each one of them. But yeah, if anyone else has a question, yeah, I think it's this one. This is the part. You know where Srila Prabhupada says in the material energy, the principal manifestations are 8, as above mentioned. And out of these, the first 5, namely earth, water, fire, and sky, are called the 5 gigantic creations, or the gross creations within which the 5 senses objects are included. And then he goes on to say, this is the part, but the other 3 items, namely mind, intelligence, and false ego, are neglected by the materialist. What I am trying to get from this, and please let me know if it's right or wrong, does that mean that as materialists, we are taking the mind, intelligence, and false ego for granted? Or is it because we're not engaging in Krishna's service? Or what does the
It
term
means
neglect?
that the materialists are focused on the things that they can see. They're not focused on the subtle. Mind is subtle, intelligence is subtle, false ego is subtle. In other words, so what I see from what Srila Prabhupada is saying is that these materialists are gross materialists, and they don't think in terms of the subtle. They don't. They don't look at subtle as part of the creation. Actually, they don't give it a category at all. Tell you, going back on science and the way scientists have talked about this, they use mind, they claim to be intelligent, and well, the ego is another thing that's there. People are proud to some different extents, but nobody connects it with part of creation. And that's why Srila Prabhupada says they are neglected by the materialists, even though clearly they're there. Clearly they're there. And they would just say maybe that's just part of the human makeup. Part of the human makeup, because people have mind, have intelligence, and yes, there's ego is there also, but they don't think in terms of relating it to part of the creation of the element. They said they don't give it the word element. They do not. Actually, now the way science has progressed to even earth, water, fire, ether are not called the elements. Sometimes only one professor I heard just started a chemistry class and said that in the beginning, people were thinking of earth, water, fire as elements, but now we have sodium, potassium, and they went on to all of these elements up to 113 or so that they've seen. It's meaning that they have been replaced. We know better now. We know better now. And then he listed these elements and defined an element and so on. So, of course, the gross materialists who are not spiritual and not looking to be spiritual, they have a different definition, and they don't take the subtle at all into consideration. For them, you handle something, yes, and gases, well, they are invisible, and air is invisible, but it's a mixture of things that we know. And if we cool it down enough, you can get a liquid out of it. And liquid is gross, and they can see it. So then, they don't think in terms of anything more at the subtle form, the subtle platform. So that's why they neglect it by these gross materialists.
Thank you for clarifying that. Thank you so much. Any questions from devotees? Any thoughts, any reflection? This has been, like I call it, a power pack verse. I'm sure there are so many in Bhagavad Gita, but this one was like, whoa, pretty power packed. And
another thinking about it. Anyway, go ahead.
That's this point that was I was wondering if you could shed some light. It was very comforting and yet very promising, where Srila Prabhupada says, therefore one may conclude that the Gita confirms the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies of Krishna. And when this energy is freed from material contamination, it becomes fully Krishna conscious or liberated. What is so powerful that Shri Prabhupada is saying that the living entity to be only one of the multi-energies. So, which means that we are one of the multi-energies. And if this one energy can be freed from material contamination, that was pretty, like, I don't know, to me, it was pretty powerful.
Yes, because we are one. Well, Krishna is multi-energies, and then we are innumerable, small parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But we also have our own independence, and we're completing ourselves. And therefore, with that free choice, we have chosen to challenge Krishna's authority, Krishna's position, and we wound up here. So we are in the wrong place. We are in the reformatory. And so if we change our thinking to connect in surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead and understand that he is the Supreme Absolute Truth, nobody's at that level, and nobody's equal to him, then that, and of course that we are not the physical bodies, we are souls too, part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That knowledge, which you've heard over and over, is actually a knowledge that's liberating, because then it makes it possible for us not to connect with the material energy as the all in all, so like so many materialists are doing. Even though things to the contrary are obvious to them, the things are actually getting weaker and weaker, and to the point where they're going to be destroyed. The physical bodies are examples of that. Still, they disregard the spiritual scientific aspect of us, which is that we are really souls, parts and parcels of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That knowledge is very liberating. And those who don't know it are still wallowing in material energy, trying to make sense of it, but actually they're making a lot of assumptions and a lot of speculation, and they get nowhere. So what Sri Prabhupada has told us, that because he repeated it so much, that we're not the body, and we are spirit soul, and we should connect and surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we're trying to practice that. Among devotees, it's known so much that we take it almost for granted. It's like if you've been in devotee life for 1 year, how come you have never heard that? Everybody knows that. Just days that people come in here. But even in the so-called higher universities and the research, they don't know. They don't know at all. And I'll give one example about Srila Prabhupada. He was invited to speak. Somebody made arrangements for him to speak at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT in Cambridge. And he spoke and he told them, you have all kinds of departments for science. But what is the department that studies the difference between a body that's alive and a body that is dead? You have a department that studies, that goes into why a body can be alive and a body that's dead. In other words, the science of the soul, because the soul coming in gives birth and leaving causes death. And in the end, when he explained to them this simple thing about introducing the soul that way, many of them agreed with him. And of course, they agreed they didn't have a department that dealt with that either. So they were quite appreciative of his darshan and lecture. Hare Krishna.
I think I remember that that pastime at the MIT in Massachusetts. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, amazing. Any last minute questions before we end this really powerful verses? Any thoughts, any clarification? And if there isn't any, please.
Right. All right, now,
please.
Srila Prabhupada talks about the impersonalists taking a part of the Swata Upanishad and saying that Krishna has no form because it's tato yad uttarataram tad arupam. Arupam, rupa is form. Now, a in front means not form, they're negative, the opposite. So that they are saying that Krishna doesn't have form because they are thinking in terms of merging into the effulgence of Krishna, the Brahmajyoti. And Srila Prabhupada makes the point that this is where they are arguing that Krishna doesn't have form, using the Upanishad. But he says that Krishna has no material form. He does have form, but his form is spiritual. And so to say Arupam means you don't have any form. Well, he has a form that's free of material contamination, but he does have form. And that's the point he was making here. So those who can know him will also become transcendental, know him in that way. But those who don't know him never leave the material world and they keep suffering the miseries here. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for sharing that. Yes. Yes, thank you. That was a nice closing statement to the conclusion to this evening. Just a humble reminder to the devotees that we will be celebrating Nrsimha Chaturdasi this Sunday at the temple, at our normal Sunday temple program. However, the temple will be open from 1 p.m. on, it being an auspicious Vaishnav day. So devotees are welcome to come to the temple early from 1 p.m. on, engage in service, do some service, help in cooking. There's many things to do. So please do join us if you can. Come at 1 o'clock or after and till the end of the program. It's a full day fast, so please do be mindful of that. Until then, Vanchakapatibhyascha, Kripasindhabevacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo, Vaishnavebhyo, Namo Namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Mother Gita.
Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.